Hello everybody, Calamity here, and I'm sad I didn't get into the beta. Today's video is going to be all about Xiao, our favorite Yaksha, and in this video, I'm going to try to cover everything you need to know about him, from his talents, his weapons, his artifacts, constellations, team setups, and of course, we're going to use him in the Spiral Abyss showcase at the very end. But before we begin, I just want to give a quick shout out to Raycaster for letting me borrow his account yet again. With all that being said, let's actually get started. Now, Xiao is a Animo main DPS who excels at dealing with groups of enemies rather than single target. You can use them for bosses if you want to. Now let's actually get into what this character actually does, starting with the normal attack, Whirlwind Thrust. Now on paper, this is actually just a regular normal attack talent, no special gimmicks or mechanics here. But however, it is worth noting that this is actually where his damage comes from. It's from his plunging attacks. They do big AoE damage, especially when his burst is active. And it also notes that Xiao does not take damage from performing plunging attacks. When it comes to upgrading your talents, you're definitely going to want to get this as high as you can, because again, this is the big one. Moving on to his elemental skill, which is also pretty straightforward. I love this character already. When you press the elemental skill button, Xiao will lunge forward and deal animo damage to any opponent in his path. And this can also be used in the air. And you have two charges of this elemental skill by default, which is really nice. It is also worth noting that when Xiao's burst is active, this elemental skill does not generate particles. So what you want to do is always spam your elemental skill before you pop your burst so that you can get some energy particles and refill your burst energy gauge towards your next burst rotation. If we look at the skill attributes, pretty straightforward. Even at level 8, it does pretty nice damage, 404 skill multiplier, and it only has a 10-second cooldown, and that is for each charge. Last but not least, and his talents, is the Bane of All Evil. This is where Xiao puts on his mask, and he'll gain several effects. The first one being he gets a huge increase in his jumping ability. And next, his attacks will have larger AoE and more attack damage. And lastly, he will do only animo damage with his normal attacks, and this cannot be overridden by any other elemental infusion. So don't worry if you have a Bennett C6 or something like that, it will not affect your Xiao's damage at all. Also worth noting that when your burst is active, Xiao will continuously lose HP. And he will immediately lose the effect of his burst if you leave the field early. So make sure you have all of your buffs, your off-field DPSs all set up before you swap over to Xiao and use his burst. Also worth noting that his loss of HP is really good with synergizing with a lot of the effects of Fontaine artifact sets and things like that. Things like the Mary Chelsea Hunter set is actually a good option for him because he is continuously losing his HP, and he'll get a nice gain in his crit rate. So just something to keep in mind when building him. Moving on to his passive talents, we have Conqueror of Evil, Tamer of Demons. This is just going to make it so that the longer that your burst is active, the more damage that Xiao gets. So he can gain a maximum of 25% damage to his burst. As long as you don't swap off early, which is really easy to obtain this damage boost. Nothing much else to say there, other than it's really nice. Next up is Dissolution Eon Heavenfall. This is going to make it so that every time you use your elemental skill, it will gain a 15% increase in damage. And you can have a maximum of 3 stacks. So if you space out your elemental skill usage, you can actually get a really hard-hitting skill, although you don't have to. It's just something nice to have. Last but not least is Transcension Gravity Defier. This is going to make it so that your stamina consumption when you're climbing is decreased by 20%. And this also does not stack with other similar talents. And that's pretty much for his talents. I mean, he is a very straightforward character. You do want to take advantage of his plunging attacks, and his bursts help you with that because it increases your jumping and increases your damage. And then you just keep doing plunging attacks over and over again until your opponents are basically dead. And when you are fighting bosses, it's okay to weave in some normal and maybe even a charge attack into his plunge when his burst is active, just to get some extra damage in there. Next up, let's talk about weapons for Xiao. Now, funny thing about his signature weapon, the Primordial Jade Wing Spear, is that although it is a 5-star weapon and it is on the weapon banner right now, this weapon is actually on the standard banner. That's right, you have a very, very small chance of actually pulling this weapon. But I'm just saying, the chance is there that you could pull a Primordial Jade Spear on the stand banner. But is it likely? Probably not. But if you don't have a Primordial Jade Wing Spear, any DPS oriented weapon will work. Calamity Queller, the Staff of Homa, the Vortex Vanquisher, all of that stuff is gonna be fine for Xiao when it comes to giving him weapons. Now, if you're looking for more fair 4-star, free-to-play friendly weapons, let's take a look at some options here. The first one is going to be the Lithic Spear. This is honestly going to be probably his best 4-star option in my opinion. The Lithic Spear has one big downside, however, and it's going to limit your teammate choices because you only get an increase to attack percentage and a crit rate increase when you have characters that come from Leeway in your team. But thankfully, Xiao does come from Leeway, so you already have 1 stack. Just getting 2 stacks of this weapon, though, is already good enough, because at Refinement 4, this is already giving you 20% attack and 12% crit rate. You don't have to do a full team from Leeway. Now, if you're willing to spend money on the Battle Pass in this game, a Deathmatch is also going to be a pretty decent option for you. It's going to increase your crit rate as a substat, and then depending on how many opponents are nearby, hopefully there's a bunch, you'll get an increase in attack, but if there's even less than 2, you get an increase. This is at Refinement 5, so these numbers are way higher than they normally would be, but you get a large increase to your attack percentage. But I mean, it is a Battle Pass weapon, so not exactly free-to-play friendly. Now, if you're like way brand new and you don't know what to give them, and you only have like some 3-star options available, the White Tassel is probably going to be your best bet. Mainly because it just gives you crit rate as a substat. The weapon's effect, though, isn't really anything special. We're not really using normal attacks that much with Xiao anyway, so I would highly recommend upgrading to a different weapon when you can. Another good weapon option, and unfortunately I can't showcase it here, but Paimon, if you go to Paimon's bargains in the store, Paimon rotates between selling the Royal set weapons and the Blackcliff set weapons. The Blackcliff Spear is actually a really decent option for Xiao. However, at the time of recording in February 2024, this is not available to you right now, so you are going to have to wait until March for Paimon to rotate her weapon options, and then you'll see the Blackcliff Spear there, and then you're going to need the Star Glitter. This is the leftover currency that you get from just pulling, whether it be on a standard banner, a limited character banner, or a weapon banner. You'll get Star Glitter from getting dupe pulls. You can use that to purchase a Blackcliff Spear. Next up, let's talk artifact sets for Xiao. Now for Xiao, it's actually really straightforward. There is a artifact set that was literally tailor-made for Xiao, and it's called the Vermilion Hereafter. Now, the good thing about this artifact set is that it is available in the strong boxes now. So you don't have to go to the domain to farm it. You can just go farm for, another character, go to another more resin efficient domain for you, and then just use your excess, your bad artifact pieces, and try to hopefully get some good Vermilion pieces. So what does it actually do? You'll get basically a bunch of extra attack percentage from this artifact set. Really solid. Now let's take a look at what other people are using, and as you can see, the Vermilion Hereafter has a dominating pick here of 50.4%. Now you might look at the combination 2 and 3 options and wonder why those? And that's just because Xiao came out very early on into Genshin Impact's lifespan, and he didn't actually have a dedicated 4-piece set. The Vermilion Hereafter came out way later, after Xiao's first release. And I'm gonna be honest, probably a lot of the people that have these sets are just too lazy to farm for, the Vermilion Hereafter. And that's totally fair, because farming for a whole new artifact set can be pain. Also, I'm gonna go ahead and suggest 2 additional artifact sets for you. If you're looking for more options other than the Vermilion Hereafter, Another option can be the Mary Chelsea Hunter set. I mentioned this earlier in the video, but because Xiao's burst drains his HP, you can easily get the effect of the 4-piece effect from the Mary Chowser set, because that'll be a bunch of free crit rate. If you are using him with Farina, which a lot of people do these days, she also helps with this because her elemental skill will also drain your team's HP as well. One more set that we can recommend is the Desert Pavilion Chronicle. It does give annual damage bonus on the 2-piece effect, but for the 4-piece effect is when your charge attacks hit an opponent, you will gain a 40% increase in plunging damage. You also get a 40% increase in normal and charge attack damage as well, but I don't really care about that, and the normal attack speed increase is also whatever. This set was definitely made more for Wanderer and not much for Xiao, but you can use this for Xiao if you do have some good artifact pieces lying around, giving you more options to choose from. Now that you've decided on a artifact set, whichever artifact set you decided on, here are the subsets that you're going to be looking for. And it is pretty straightforward because Xiao is he is a main DPS character, so we do want that crit rate, we do want that crit damage. You also want the attack percentage. You also definitely want to get some energy recharge. Xiao is a character that is, not that great outside of his burst. When he's in his burst, he's amazing. And he's kind of like Raiden Shogun in a way. Like Raiden Shogun, when she's not doing the sword move or the sword mode, she's just kind of like a meh DPS. But once the sword's out, she starts killing stuff really, really fast. That's how Xiao is too. You can also get him Elemental Mastery, but this is definitely a lower priority because, well, Swirl, it will increase the damage of just your swirls, which, he can be doing if you got some other elements out there on the field, but it's not really a big deal. Now let's go ahead and talk about the Sands, Goblet, and the Circlet. For the main stats for your Sands, pretty straightforward. You're just going to want attack percentage. I don't know why 2.9% if you picked HP percentage as your main stat. Maybe it has some really sick substats or something, but I don't recommend an HP percentage one for Xiao. Next up, for the Goblet, should also be pretty straightforward, but we do want animal damage bonus. Attack percentage is okay early on if you don't have anything, if you don't have a good animal damage bonus Goblet yet, that's okay. I don't know, again, why we're doing HP percentage for Xiao. Last but not least, for the Circlet, your choice of crit rate or crit damage, whichever you feel like you're lacking. Obviously, your weapon choice influences this as well. Next up are Constellations for Xiao. Now, as you can see, Ray actually has his C1, but I will go ahead and be honest and let you know right now that, Xiao does not need any Constellations to do well. Obviously, if you have his Constellations, though, he'll be a lot better as they just give him more damage and more utility. But let's go over what they actually do. Starting with his C1, he'll gain an extra charge to his elemental skill, meaning he can use this 3 times. This is good, not even for the damage sake, but mostly for his own energy regeneration, as he'll be able to generate even more particles for himself. C2 is going to make it so that when Xiao is not on the field, he'll gain an energy recharge of 25%. So again, just helping you get that burst back faster, which is nice. C3 and C5 are going to increase his skill in burst. Now the one that increases his burst, which is C5 in this case, this is the good one because it's going to increase that damage increase from the burst, but getting +3 to your skill is honestly meh, and that's probably going to be his worst constellation. And then I just saw what C4 does. C4 is going to make it so that when Xiao's HP falls below 50%, he'll gain 100% defense bonus. This is useless. Why? Because usually you should have a very solid healer for Xiao so that his HP doesn't fall below 50%, like a Bennett, for example. Or if you have a shielder like Zhongli, then you should never ever have to worry about getting hit, when you're below 50% HP. So therefore, this defense bonus is completely wasted. So maybe I take that back about the +3 skill being useless. C6 is going to make it so that when you are under the effects of your burst and you hit 2 opponents with a plunging attack, he'll immediately gain a charge of his elemental skill. You can also use his elemental skill while ignoring its cooldown. So while this is really, really strong for Xiao because you'll be able to spam his skill, which activates that passive 2 talent. Obviously this is whale territory. If you do get into his C6 though, that does change up your combo. So instead of earlier I mentioned you would interweave some normal attacks into a charge while doing his plunging stuff on a single target. Here you would do plunge and then like spam your elemental skill basically into a plunge attack. Maybe you might just spam his elemental skill. Right, let's talk team comps for Xiao. And well, the guy's kind of limited to be honest, because he is a main DPS and he's an Animo DPS, so it's not like you're going to be doing different sorts of elemental reactions with him and stuff like that. He also doesn't really work with Dendro. That being said, who can use on him? Since he is your main DPS, it's very advisable just to give him a bunch of teammates that support him any way possible. Freyna is good because she buffs damage. She buffs damage by a ton, and she also provides her own damage from her bubble buddies, and she can also drain HP from her team. So if you're using things like the Mary Chelsea Hunter set, then you get a bunch of free crit rate. She can also apply Hydro to enemies, so you can swirl off that with Xiao, resulting in big damage numbers, or at least bigger damage numbers. Faruzan can be another great option for Xiao because she buffs Animo damage while also shredding Animo resistance. Very, very good, especially if you get more constellations on her. She becomes a fantastic Animo support. She also usually is equipped with stuff like a Favonius bow to also help with Xiao's energy recharge. Bennett here also going to be the healer of the team while also providing a huge attack buff to Xiao. And usually you don't move too much when Xiao's doing his burst attacks anyways, because his AoE is so large that you can mostly stay inside Bennett's his burst and be fine and get the damage increase. Other notable teammates for Xiao are going to be Sucrose. Sucrose is more of a, if you don't have a Faruzan option, because she does also give a bunch of particles to Xiao, and she was probably Xiao's most used support back in the day before Faruzan was introduced into the game. You can also replace Bennett with any shielder of your choice. So if you have Zhongli, if you have Layla, you could use Kirara technically because her shield is good, but you won't really be getting value from her Dendro application. And last but not least, although Raid doesn't have her, if you did get Cloud Retainer, of course she's going to be an excellent option for Xiao because she does buff plunging attack damage, so she's going to be a great support. All right, we done did it. We've made it to yet the end of another guide, and I should have some background footage of Xiao performing in the latest iteration of the Spiral Abyss. Now, I will point out that yes, this is the first half and not the problematic second half. The second half of the current version of the Spiral Abyss has only bosses, so I put him on the first because, well, that's where all the regular mobs are. You're not fighting like large groups of enemies, but you are fighting, not bosses. So that's where Xiao really excels. Now, can you use Xiao on the second half of the Spiral Abyss against those bosses? Sure. Like it obviously he's gonna struggle because that's not really his forte. I would recommend you use a more single target focused team. If I had Xiao on my account, I would definitely be using him on the first half just because he's better utilized there. But if you do want a challenge for you Xiao mains out there, feel free to put him on the second half if you want. But yeah, Xiao is a very straightforward character, very easy to play. Even though I did mention the usage of some combos earlier, you really don't have to do them if you don't want to. If you just want to pop the burst and then just use plunge attack spam, feel free. And honestly, that's fine. For most cases, especially when you're fighting groups of enemies, you don't have to interweave any normal or charge attacks when doing so. And as you can see on the footage, I'm sure that I'm clearing the chambers in a reasonable amount of time. At least I hope so. I actually haven't recorded it yet, so I don't know what you guys are seeing. Again, Xiao being a really strong character, but also a very niche character. It's just, I would only just use him for dealing with groups of enemies. He's great for domain clearing really fast, assuming there isn't any Animo resistant enemies or Animo immune enemies, then it's a really fast clear time. So I don't really have much else to say about this character. I mean, I feel like I explained everything that needed to be explained. That is going to be a wrap on this guide. If you have any questions about Xiao, or you feel like I missed something, fellow Xiao mains out there, feel free to point it out. or ask in the comments down below. I'll do my best to try to help you out. And with that being said, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you all in the next video.